Hi, so welcome to Cornus. Now, this is an amazing herb, and it's actually a dogwood. And there's two types in particular that we emphasize at White Rabbit Institute of Healing, and one is the American variety, that's Cornus florida, and the Chinese variety that has been used for thousands of years in traditional Chinese medicine, and that's Cornus officinalis. And this herb is very well known, right? It's the berries that are used. The bark is very frequently used, especially in traditional Chinese medicine, for treating impotence. It's a tonic, right? Fevers, dysentery, and it has this unusual capability for treating shock. So let's dive into this a little bit because I think it's a good way of understanding this herb from a different perspective. So Cornus um, is very sour, right? Those berries are super sour. You're not going to want to eat a lot of them and make your tummy upset. And slightly warm, which is unusual because from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, it's considered a yin tonic. And yin is everything that's cooling and moistening and nourishing. And this is one of those rare tonic herbs, especially for yin, that has a slightly warm capacity. So even though it can be used by itself, typically it's just not. It's used with a lot of other herbs because this ability to come in and support yin but be a little bit warming. So it enhances formulas with all of its capabilities. From a Western perspective, antihistamine, antimicrobial, so it's going to fight all kinds of potential infections associated with injuries or wounds that could be associated with going into shock. Anti-malaria, and malaria is not really something in the Western world that we think a lot about, but let's look at its symptoms for just a moment. High fevers, profuse sweating, mental confusion can set in, right? Accelerated heart rate, nausea, shivering, super high fever, profuse sweating, but shivering. Those are also signs and symptoms for a person going into shock. These are deadly conditions, right? You want to call 911 when somebody's having this kind of injury, and obviously you want to immediately do whatever you can to stop what may be excess bleeding if that's what caused it. But an antihistamine, there are many people who go into anaphylactic shock because of allergic reactions. There are septic shock from blood infections, right? From injuries that can create all kinds of wounds. So this is an extraordinary herb to maybe consider, especially if you're somebody who goes out deep into the wilderness where calling 911 isn't going to be your go-to. You want to do that always, of course, but maybe you don't have phone reception. Maybe there's just time, right? Shock moves fast. So here's an herb you could be having in your first aid kit. And being making use of. And from a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, it's very tonifying to the kidneys, the liver, it's blood tonifying. So it has a lot of other applications. But I thought this would be a good one to kind of consider because it was even used in the American Civil War because, dogwood trees were everywhere. So soldiers would take this to help, calm them down from tremendous emotional distress of a battle. So it's emotional shock as well. Wounds and shock, right? And as we mentioned, allergic reactions, all of this sort of application. So there's a new way for you to think about the dogwood, or as we, botanically refer to it as cornus. It's an amazing herb, beautifully respected in traditional Chinese medicine and very much respected in Western herbology as well.